The windswept plains of Kraxis Minor offered little respite from the raging battle. Sergeant Barnes huddled behind a crumbled wall, the last remaining structure in what was once a village, but now resembled a bomb-blasted moonscape. He checked his plasma rifle for the 10th time, more from nerves than necessity. A gun still had half a charge, but ammunition was running low. Another explosion rocked the ground, showering Barnes with dust and gravel. He risked a peek over the top of the wall. 100 yards away, the last of the human defenses were being overrun by a swarm of insectoid mantids. Their shrieks and howls chilled Barnes to his core, despite having heard them 1,000 times before. The humans had held Kraxis Minor for 6 months, but no longer. Their appeals for reinforcements went unanswered, written off as a lost cause by high command. Too many resources poured into a worthless ball of rock. Now only 36 human soldiers remained, woefully outgunned by the tenacious Mantid warriors. Barnes checked his chronometer. Any minute now, the evac ships would be touching down to rescue what few people remained before Kraxis fell for good. Barnes knew he would likely never set foot on its surface again. He touched the small figurine that hung from a chain on his neck, a carving of a local deity gifted to him by a Kraxian child, a reminder of what they fought for. His moment of reflection was shattered when Private Davies came sprinting over the rise behind him, plasma fire licking at his heels. "We gotta move, Sarge." Mantids punched through the eastern flank. Davies slid into cover beside Barnes, struggling to catch his breath. "Most of our boys are down or fallen back. It's just us now." Barnes muttered a curse. If the Mantids overtook their only viable evacuation site, no one was getting off this rock alive. "Grab what ammo you've got left," Barnes said, locking eyes with the young private. "We'll give those buggers a little surprise." Davies nodded, slotting his last energy pack into his rifle. Barnes put a hand on his shoulder, feeling the private trembling with adrenaline and fear. "Easy there, son. We knew this is how it would end, but we're not done yet. Come on." Barnes vaulted over the barricade, bounding from one piece of cover to the next with Davies close behind. The evac site sat at the bottom of a craggy ravine, the only reasonably flat terrain for ships to land. Unfortunately, it also made for a perfect killing field. A dozen human bodies littered the rocky ground, the rest taking shelter behind debris and wrecked vehicles. And swarming toward them were at least 50 mantids, their sharp limbs glinting in the harsh sunlight. "Stay strong, boys," Barnes shouted to the few beleaguered survivors. "The cavalry has arrived." With a burst of covering fire, Barnes and Davies slid into the defensive line. Sergeant Wang gave Barnes a grim smile in greeting. She bled from a dozen wounds but still grasped her rifle steady and sure. "About time you showed up," she said. "These Mantid bastards don't know when to quit." "That makes 2 of us," Barnes said with a defiant grin. "When's evac due?" Wang checked her chrono, brow furrowing. 3 minutes ago. You know they won't wait if it gets too hot." Barnes scowled. 3 minutes could mean their survival or certain death. "Pass the word to hold positions no matter what," Barnes said. "Help is coming." He hoped saying it would make it true. The defenders lowered their heads as another blistering salvo exploded overhead. The Mantids were nearly upon them, a roiling tide of teeth and claws. Their shrieked cries echoed off the high ravine walls. "Steady." Barnes raised his rifle, sighting down the first slavering alien that came within range. He pulled the trigger, dropping it instantly, but more clambered over their fallen comrade. "Go all out, weapons free." Up and down the line rifles blazed. Mantids came apart in sprays of ichor and limbs, but still they kept humming, an unstoppable force driven by singular purpose. Barnes' rifle clicked empty. He drew his pistol with his offhand, desperately trying to stem the tide as the creatures flowed toward him. Claws raked across his chest plate, flashing sparks but failing to penetrate. A barbed limb caught his wrist, sending his pistol tumbling from nerveless fingers. He swung the empty rifle like a club, bashing back his encroaching attackers. All around him, humans and Mantids grappled in close combat. The line had broken. It was every soldier for themselves. A Mantid reared up in front of Barnes, thicker and more fearsome than the rest. The Brood Queen come to relish her victory. Her tri-hinged jaws snapped furiously, poisoned saliva dripping in long, sticky strands. Her claws flexed, ready to deliver the killing blow. Barnes stared into her alien eyes, so familiar yet so utterly unknowable. In them, he saw the same primal determination that every soldier possessed no matter their species. The will to survive and conquer against impossible odds. They both knew only one would walk away this day. Muscles coiling, the Brood Queen leapt forward and was smashed sideways by a barrage of plasma cannon fire. Barnes shielded his face from the heat and shrapnel as the gunship roared overhead, guns blazing. The evac shuttle swung low behind it, ramp already lowering before landing struts touched the ground. "Up and at 'em, boys," an amplified voice bellowed from the gunship. "Taxi's here and we ain't got all day." Like angry bees from a shaken hive, the surviving Mantid warriors mobbed the gunship in a frenzy. The pilot kept her steady, mowing them down with ruthless precision. Barnes scrambled to his feet, pulling up the soldiers closest to him. "You heard the lady, get on board. Davies, Wang, come on." The ragged survivors limped up the ramp, shedding weapons and gear in their haste. Barnes stood at its base, ushering each one while keeping his body angled to shield them from stray fire. The second he saw Wang's boots clear the threshold, he slapped the hatch control. "We're all aboard, punch it." The pilot didn't need to be told twice. The engine screamed to full burn, lifting off in a cloud of dust and gravel. Barnes collapsed against the inner bulkhead, breathing hard. He raised his eyes to meet Wang's. Both broke into exhausted, exhilarated grins. As the shuttle streaked for orbit, Barnes stared out a tiny porthole at the battle-ravaged ruins where so many had sacrificed their lives today. The Mantids swarmed through the stones like ants, infesting every crack and crevice, erasing all signs of human occupation. Soon it would be as if they had never existed at all. Barnes held the figurine at this throat, intoning a silent prayer in Kraxian to whatever gods may be listening. He had done his duty, as had they all. When the call came again, as it surely would, more would arrive to stand and fight and keep fighting until the job was done. The shuttle rendezvoused with the fleet and moved off without fanfare. Kraxis Minor diminished to just another insignificant red speck, already forgotten. But Barnes would remember. They all would. And when the time came to return they would. Humanity endured. And it would endure again,